Squadron leaders reporting.
Admiral, this is Blue Leader standing by.
This is Gold Leader standing by.
This is Red Leader standing by.
Welcome to the Star Wars Post livecast, the official livecast show of the StarWarsPost.com, your Star Wars home for news, reviews, features, and more. The StarWarsPost.com, the galaxy at your fingertips. And here is your host of the Star Wars Post livecast, Max Pallas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Post livecast. It's Thursday, July 26, 2018, and this is episode 13, the San Diego Comic-Con Star Wars Roundup. Tonight, we'll discuss the Star Wars wares and publishing, toys, and other news of the week. We have a lot to get through, so with that, let's meet this week's panel. She's a writer and contributor to the StarWarsPost.com, Liz Larson.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here.
Hey, Liz. It's nice to have you back, as always. He's the editor-in-chief of RebelsReport.com, our good friend Pete. Hey, Petey.
Hi. You couldn't keep me away. You tried.
I tried. I always try. But yeah, I was hoping to try to get some more guests this week. I'm going to try to do better, to get more. But we're here. The family's here. We got a lot to get to, of course, with San Diego Comic-Con just wrapping up. But before we dive into that, though, guys, let's go into some business out of the way. The Star Wars Post livecast is now a podcast on iTunes. So please, guys, go ahead and seek it out. It means a lot to us if you go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast while on iTunes. It helps us out tremendously and helps get the show popular. So please, guys, if you're out there listening, do that for us, please. It helps, right? And especially those YouTube views. Also, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on this channel on YouTube. Again, help. We need it. We want to keep the show going. And, you know, it's nice, encouraging. It's really encouraging to, like, read the reviews and stuff like that on a Tuesday when I'm at work. Make me feel good. Okay, guys. So San Diego Comic-Con finished up. We were hoping to get some Star Wars news. Of course, we talked about in our last show the 10th anniversary for Clone Wars and how great that was and how the feels were there and everyone's all excited and what our hang-ups were, right? So, but there are other news that came out this week, thankfully today, where the good friend Florian over at Jedi Bibliotech had an exclusive this afternoon for Star Wars Resistance. According to his reporting, the series premieres October 13th in Germany with a two-parter titled The Recruit. The first season has 22 episodes, 10 of which are set to air this year. Again, guys, this is for Germany, not here in the States, so we might get maybe a little bit ahead of time or maybe at the exact same time. I don't think they'll get it later, but that's a possibility. So Florian, a good friend there, came out with that scoop in mid-afternoon, which was nice because this was kind of a dry week in terms of news outside of the SDCC stuff. So it's exciting, but we're finally getting news about this new animation series, not from Lucasfilm. We're getting it from other people, right? So, B, what did you think when you heard about the news?
I was excited that we're actually finally getting some news. Based on his description, it sounds pretty similar to the Rebels release schedule. Yep. Where they'll have a run in October, November, first week of December. They'll probably take 3 to 4 weeks off between the holidays and leading into January, come back middle to late January, and then do the rest of the episodes, January, February, March, maybe. And that'll wrap up the season. So it sounds similar in terms of release pattern to that. The one title, The Recruit, probably Recruit Part 1 and Part 2, based on what we've seen with some episode titles in the past. That makes sense. So it all seems pretty legit to me. I know we could talk about the description.
Yeah, I'm gonna get into that here in a second. So Florian, Florian always seems to get like this German TV guide where he gets to dial in and he gets all these episodes, descriptions for us, the count, and like pretty much when they're going to release. And of course, he's on point with this one again. Got a copy of that German TV guide somewhere on somebody's coffee table. And he does have the synopsis for the first episode, which is titled The Recruit. He stated the following: the Resistance fighter Poe Dameron talks to young pilot Kazuda Kaz, that's going to be our new hero, Xiono, with spying on the First Order. At the time, little was known about the secretive organization and its strength. In order to fulfill his mission, Kaz travels to the space station Colossus, which is being used by many ships as a port to refuel and do repairs. However, there are also dangerous races taking place there. After Kaz brags about his piloting skills at his arrival there, he is soon drawn into one of the races. So that's the synopsis. Like, what is your first thoughts, Liz, when you hear that?
A couple of things. First off the bat, I'm the biggest Poe fan. And so I was like, all right, great. We're going to have a cameo from Poe, and then it's going to be all these new people. Sure. Like, that's fine. And also, like, I was like, a racing show? Really? That's like what we're going to go with here? I mean, I guess that's like what we're doing. I mean, I was really hoping that this was going to be some like resistance, first order. We learn how they've been fighting, see what they've been doing, like see how they've been going against each other, see how like early on the resistance was forming. But like, I guess that's really not what we're getting. We're getting like
we are. I think we are. It's just this kind of description worries me a little bit. And I'll say what it is, because we're all trying to figure out, where does Star Wars Resistance fit into the age chain? Like, what's the demographic this thing is going to hit? And I look at this. So Poe is giving him a mission. He's his commanding officer. You're going to go spy on the First Order for us that we don't know a lot about. So that gives us a big clue to at least the time frame of where this Resistance show is going to set in. That literally, like, they don't know much about the First Order at this point. So he goes in to give him a mission to go spy on the First Order, and he decides to go illegal racing instead. And I couldn't, like, make fun of this on Twitter. Like, does this give me a hint of what demographic this is going to hit on? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll say this is my big hang up with the series since we found out that it was being announced and sort of where it was going to be set, is based on the stuff that we've already gotten in sort of canon about this. The First Order and the Resistance don't really have any conflicts until very late in the game.
Yeah.
Basically,
it's a Pearl Harbor kind of experience.
So, like, where's the action going to be in the show if your heroes and your villains can't really fight? And so, like, we're getting races, something probably similar to pod races. Is he going there and racing because he just likes the thrill of it? Is he going to earn money to get something that he needs for his ship, or to try to get in with this other crew that's sort of adjacent to the First Order and try to get into them that way? But it sounds like the action of the series is going to be much more of the sort of fun, high stakes, reckless racing, and less of the intergalactic space fighting.
No, I think the racing is just for this episode. I'm sure it'll tie in with the mission. Like, he has this mission, but something happens, and now he has to race in order to complete his mission. And he's going to do this racing or whatever. For me, it just sounds like I don't even see Ezra doing this. You know what I mean? Like, if Kanan told Ezra to go do something, I don't see him just gallanting, I'm just going to go racing instead, with these guys. Of course, this is just a synopsis. It doesn't tell us anything about what's happening. But it did kind of tongue-in-cheek, like with me this afternoon, going, oh, already the kid's not paying attention and not doing what he's supposed to, right? On a Disney Channel for children. It's like, you have to listen to what adults tell you to do in a mission. But, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I don't know. To me, it signaled like a lightness, right? Like, I don't even know if it's a kiddiness, but I think it's like this is going to be about racing, and this is going to be about this young, fun, high-flying kid, and like whatever else. And who knows? I mean, like, Rebels started in a little bit more gravity, and the Clone Wars definitely did too.
Yeah.
So I think like they're tonally starting this in a very different place. I don't know, like,
I just, and
kids or anything.
Of course,
it's just interesting.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think if you look at like the animation style, of course, Clone Wars is very cinematic. Rebels, not as cinematic, but very deep. Rebels had this nice sort of, especially the music, it had this very gravitas. Like, you can tell, like, oh, adults can watch this. Now with this new animation style, which is similar to Voltron, which I enjoy. So it's like, is this really? And then we're hearing rumors that it's going to be for a younger crowd. And look at the synopsis, it's kind of an inch deep. I don't know. I mean, P, what does it speak to? Yeah.
It's interesting because in the stuff we've heard about Han in this time period is that he's out in the galaxy involved in like swoop bike racing or different kind of racing.
Sure.
And so it sort of fits in with that. There's a pretty healthy racing circuit, different racing circuits that are going on across the galaxy.
Yeah, and Claudia's Bloodline had that. Talked extensively about that.
That one pilot that was one of the racers too, right? That she had she got the illness. So I can see them doing a lot of stuff with that. I don't know. It's just weird to me because I don't understand where they're going to go with this series, just based on what we know already, and how he's going to be a spy, because the First Order trains all their people from like basically the cradle. And so it's not like they're going to take him really. I wouldn't expect them to take them within their ranks. Well,
we do get some instance of it. Like again, this is where I think where the Phasma book really comes in, right? We get a glimpse of Val, who's a spy for the Resistance, who are already well underway of understanding who the First Order are, and she's using her tiny fighter basically to do electronic surveillance, get closer to the feet, find where their positions are, that sort of stuff, right? Which is important in war. So we've seen that kind of level. Maybe that's what this Operation This Kid's kind of be like. So we already have some groundwork. I don't think, at least for in the first season, because I think this tends to be a very pilot-centric show. This is about guys jumping into planes, or characters jumping into planes, right? And just shooting stuff down and doing stuff. And that's great, right? It really is. For me, it's like Baba Black Sheep, right? From an old show I used to watch when I was a kid. And about World War II and about Marine fighters, just constantly going up in the air and just shooting stuff and ending the show. So I don't know. I'm encouraged. I'm glad to have dates and episodes. So a 22 count is a pretty good run of episodes. 22 is a lot. So 22, it's full breath. We're going to get 10 before the Christmas, probably before the end of Christmas. And, it's really great. Florian got another great exclusive. So I kind of find what that site is. He looks up and gets his info from. But again, scooping, the marketing team again. They could have had it and they lost it. And it's like we talked about at Comic-Con. They're so close. People want to know about it. It doesn't hurt the production at all. And if things get changes delayed a week, it's not a big deal, right, to tell everybody. But again, the news scoop goes out through a site in Germany, which is very popular, like FlowSite, and the way it works. But, that hurts. And
that's what is that? What do you say is October 13th? I think you said.
Yeah. So it is October 13th when it's going to come out.
But I mean, that's like 2.5 months away. That's
what?
Right around the corner.
And you know what? I didn't even check. Let's go back here and check and just make sure, because I think this is important for the viewers. Because you know what this is going to tell me that I didn't think about until just now. October 13th, right? What date is that? Saturday night.
Yeah.
So, or Saturday morning. So, if this is a Saturday show, this is going to be a kid's show, guys. This is going to be in the morning. Because there's no way, if they're releasing a show that's for more adultish, they're not doing it on Saturday nights. They'll do that on another night during the week. Not on Saturday. Because adults don't watch TV on Saturday nights. They go out. So the odds are this is going to be a Saturday morning cartoon. Wow. Okay. Well, explains why they brought the Clone Wars back. At least for me. Right?
Yeah.
Literally, I'm sure, this is me just speculating. But I have one solid question for Lucasfilm. When did you greenlight the 12 episodes for Clone Wars? Was it recently? Or was it a long time ago? Because I wonder if they got whiff that people were like, well, Resistance is coming out. Oh, but it's going to be for kids. And there's going to be backlash. Because there are people who really like Star Wars animation. And now with Rebels gone, they're going to want to see something that's sort of adult-esque in that spot now that it's gone. And they won't get it. And I wonder if they greenlit the 12 episodes for Clone Wars because they knew there was going to be a backlash. And there's a part of me that's worried about this strategy because everyone keeps marketing it this, and I see a lot of people making mistakes, thinking that Clone Wars is back. It's not back. It's only back for 12 episodes. That's not even half a season. That's a big difference. And I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed because I think a lot of people are just confused with the news. They just think it's back permanently. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the goal, but something here really, this is not going to go well. And in this climate, with a drought coming, this is really not going to go well with a lot of people. I'll enjoy it because I get to watch it with my kids. So that demographic hits me. I am going to enjoy Resistance with my kids. I'm going to love it to death. But for the single guy who's in his 20s or the single gal who's in her 20s, and they want to see a Star Wars animation show that they're really hipped on, but it's only coming on Saturday mornings, and the stories are really just not filling that cup. I don't know.
Yeah, it may. Yeah, I'm sure I'll watch it and my wife will probably watch it with me. But it may be a very disposable show versus something that's a little more meaty, I guess, in terms of the Star Wars, just the universe, like the Clone Wars was. So we'll see how it goes. Be optimistic. Hopefully, it turns out well. So
here's a question I have: the Marvel animation shows that come on Saturday morning, right? Are they like the 18 type of format, where every episode just stands on its own? It's not a really coherent storyline that's traveled from episode to episode to episode like some saga. It's just we run, we blow stuff up, good guys win, end of show.
I have no idea.
Does Marvel run like that? Because that's the question I have. If they do, are they just doubling down on that and just using that same formula for Star Wars?
I haven't seen a lot of them. I've seen some of the ones that were on XD and stuff, just a little bit here and there. And, the observations I would have would be the animation quality isn't that great on a lot of them. There are some, like, multi-part stories that I've seen, but it's also it seems like it's played for a lot more laughs, especially the Spider-Man ones that I saw. And then it seems like the Marvel ones they put out are only for a couple seasons and they move on to something else. They're not something that they're going to do like 4 or 5 seasons on usually. It's just like 1 or 2 seasons and they go on to the next thing.
Wow.
I also wonder about how much this is about Lucasfilm and how much this is about Disney XD and those channels saying to Lucasfilm, you're in our, like, we own Lucasfilm. This is in our IP. We need another show. Crank out another kids show to us. Like, we need content. This makes sense to do it in-house, to do it with people. You already have teams over there. You know what I mean? Like, let's hire the people. Let's do this. Right? And, like, that's in part how they ended up with all those Marvel shows, right? Like, it was just like IP. We have it. Let's, like, crank it out. Some people will watch it. So I do wonder how much of this, especially Resistance, which is partially why, like, maybe Lucasfilm isn't marketing it so much, is more about, like, Disney XD creating content than it is about Lucasfilm creating content, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and like maybe the ball was more in Disney XD's court of like budget and kind of just like general tone, right? Like, this is what we need in our lineup. We don't want to spend a ton of money on it. And what can you make for us?
Yeah, and I hate speculating on this. I don't enjoy this. It's like when you have no information, zero, and there's nothing wrong about talking about the process. When you announce this, it's okay to be open with people up front and say, hey guys, this is mostly going to be for kids, right? We're trying to fill up content for Disney. People get that. I think people are sucker for honesty. They are. And they're more accepting. They're less to be angry when they know what the plan is and they understand where things fit. When you have none of that, you'll get this whole crew on YouTube and everyone else, oh, see, Kathy Kennedy's making another mistake. She needs to go. And it's like, no, that wasn't the intention. This is really to fill more spots in Disney XD. It'll have some Star Wars, but it's great that you can watch it with your kids. And I think that's where marketing kind of comes in and everyone kind of just loosening up that box a little bit and opening it up and just being honest about what things are and what they fall into. And I just, and I hate speculating about this because it just seems like show after show we're crapping on Lucasfilm. And I don't want to crap on Lucasfilm. I don't. And I think by the end of the show, I'm really going to be crapping on Lucasfilm. In fact, I already told Pete I got a feature I'm writing tomorrow morning. And we'll get to that coming up here, with the roundup with San Diego. Go ahead.
I think I'm going to come back to this in our later topics, and this is going to be part of the thing, is like, you know what? I don't really care that much if this is like a kid show and it's not for me, right? A kid show and it's not for me, like whatever. Like, I'm happy that they're creating something that works in their lineup, that they feel like is going to work. I'm sure there are going to be kids who are going to appreciate it. That doesn't bother me. I don't need to know a million things about it. I do because I like podcasting and I like talking about it. But like personally, it's not like I'm hanging my hat on the end of the night at what Lucas is filming in their animated show, right? The thing that bothers me more is when they're selling kind of this package of content. And like Star Wars fans, you will be satisfied all the time with the books, the movies, the TV show. It's all canon. You should care about it all. You should want to see it all. And in fact, it's not all for everybody, right? And like,
exactly.
And so I don't know. For me, I think I'd rather see their energy invested in certain products and be like, this is for like you and anyone else who might enjoy it, right? As opposed to like, in order to be a Star Wars fan, you're going to want to be on board for all of this.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Not really creating content that is aimed at kind of the fans that are trying to be there for all of that, right?
Yeah, and nobody wants to take anything away.
How many times I've been like not pitched, but like, I mean, even at the publishing panel, right? When they bring out like a book that's basically like a 3rd grade level reading book and they're like, you're going to love this.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I'm like,
no, not really.
Cool, and I'll read it and I'll enjoy it. But like, stop, like things are made for different people. And like when you're Lucasfilm, you should be creating content for like all different ages, all different stories and all that kind of thing. But the emphasis kind of on you need to love it all, you need to know it all is raising the stakes on all these things that I really shouldn't care about, right?
Exactly. And it's like no one wants to take anything away. I'm so glad they're doing this show. My kids are going to dig this show. But it's like, but you're still not giving what people want. Or you just haven't told us yet. Right? For all we know, the whole Sabine and Ahsoka thing could happen. right? They can fire up that new series trying to find Ezra. That could happen in short order. I mean, we don't know. The crazy thing is we don't know. And it's like when you get stuff delivered, it's just letdown. It's disappointment. But they're like, don't worry, great things are coming. But why can't you tell us? Is it really going to hurt what you're doing by telling us? And I think they're wrong about that, I think, in some respects. You can talk a lot about the projects you're working on and not damage the products. I mean, the products when they come out. You're not. Well, Florian released today is not going to hurt Resistance. It's how many episodes? What's the demographic? What is it about? 3 sentences on StarWars.com is not enough when the show was 2 months out. And I think the reason why I don't think we haven't seen it, I'm beginning to wonder, is because they know there's going to be a backlash. And the way things are on YouTube right now and in some other places, like they're really going to get a backlash from people. Oh, this is Disney again taking over. And it's maybe it's smart marketing not to release it now. And I have to give it to them. They have all the cards in their hands. I don't. But it's like, we're going to get their... Go ahead, Pete.
We're like, what, 10 weeks out, 11 weeks out, and we haven't even had a trailer for it yet? A teaser?
I mean, 10 weeks is nothing. People don't realize that my kids will be in school in a couple weeks. Like, we're like 2 or 3 weeks they're in school. And when September starts, October is like a snap of the fingers. It's here before you know it. And that's when the show's supposed to go on. It's like, where is the marketing for this stuff? And it's like, this is nuts. And especially they own the channel. So it's not like, you know what I mean? Throwing up commercials isn't this huge thing. It's not like a studio that's giving a show to some other, some other channel or something. They own everything. It's all part of Disney. Okay, guys. So at least we got that. Thank you, Florian. I appreciate it. We're getting that info.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, guys. But let's dive into San Diego Comic-Con. And of course, we talked about the 10th anniversary in the last show. We're not going to dive into that. It was nice that the Star Wars show came out with a nice, good, crisp video of everyone's reaction, all the tears and everything that was coming on. That was great to have that. And it was really great they did that. Okay, guys, so San Diego Comic-Con had more in store than just the announcement of 12 episodes for Star Wars The Clone Wars. Marvel, Del Rey, and Disney Publishing and more give us a look at the roadmap of what's to come. We're going to go ahead and we're going to real hit some beats on some of these, and some of these we'll delve long in. So first up is going to be Marvel. So Marvel announced 3 new comics, Star Wars Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance, a 30-issue Max series which features many heroes and villains of the saga across different eras. Okay. Pete, I'll let you go first on this one because I love comics, but I think you love comics even more than I do.
I'm a little complicated because I have a love-hate relationship with comics. I love the format. I kind of hate the shortness of the stories. So I prefer like the trade paperbacks or the omnibuses when I'm reading because it goes by so quickly. I will say that I'm excited because some of the creators that we have coming back for the comics are pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Tom Taylor. He's really good. And he's going to be doing the era that interests me the most, the Age of Resistance section of this, where we actually get some sort of more current events in terms of the galaxy. But it's interesting. They say they're going to continue the sort of like the focus on a hero or a villain. So I wonder if these are going to be much more like standalones, and we're not going to get that cohesive of a story. They're going to be like one shots. I don't know what their plan is so far.
Yeah, we're not getting arcs. I think you're exactly right. They're just standalone stories. That's what they are.
Which can be cool, but
is that where I know? All right, I'm gonna do a flash here for all the listeners and viewers. I am going to shit all over this San Diego Comic-Con stuff in the next like half an hour. I mean, I was happy to see the stuff that they announced, but I'm really kind of teed off, pissed off, not just confused why we didn't get more. I mean, this just doesn't make any sense. And it starts, honestly, and that's why I put Marvel at the top here. It's like 3 different eras, standalone stories. I want to know what happens in the Resistance era. That's where we're in right now. You introduce me to Rey 30 years after Return of the Jedi. And after 3.5 years, I have barely almost anything about this time and place. When is Lucasfilm going to start spending effort and time in delivering us content to the era that we're introduced to? It seems like here's Rey, but we're going to spend all of our time on animation, comics, books, talking about all these other eras that we've already been to. It's like, this is driving me crazy. 3 different eras, standalone stories. I don't care about what happens during the Clone Wars. There, I said it. I don't care about what happens during a New Hope era. That cup is filled for me. I care about the Resistance era. Who's Rey? How was her life on Jakku? Right? How's Phasma? How did the First Order become the First Order? Who's Snoke? Where does he come from? Blah, 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 etc., etc. Here we got 3 new comic series all over the place. Maybe Resistance will get us. So that's something. You know? But between the Clone Wars coming back and now this, and it's like, you know, we move further on, of course, which is the big thing for me, of course, is publishing. Star Wars books is where, you know, my heart lies. And it's like, you know, and hearing that was, again, another big disappointment for me. So, and of course, I'm sorry, there was one more comic series that was announced also. There was also the announcement of Star Wars Tales from Vader's Castle from IDW, written by Kevin Scott and Halloween-esque Adventures. So they're Halloween horror stories that are probably standalone stories as well. Yeah,
and those are going to be one a week in October. So, but like you go into that, the IDW, the Star Wars Tales are a younger targeted story. Sure. They're not as weighty in terms of canon. They're more fun and disposable.
They sound fun.
And yeah, and I'm excited for those actually. But going into it, I know what they're gonna. You know, you know what they're gonna be.
Yeah.
They're not what you're looking for from Marvel.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, like this new era series. I'm not saying that should go away. I want that too. It's like, but where's my Rey comic of her life on Jakku? Where's my Finn comic about his life in the First Order? Where's my Poe comic that goes deeper into the Resistance, but I mean heavier than what it's been now? Right? Where's my Leia comic that in the Resistance era? And that's where I'm coming to. It's like, we want these stories. I want more about what life is like in this era for everybody. The politics.
Or
all of it.
Go randomly somewhere. Go back to the Casino Planet and have a comic run there, right? Like, to me, it's mostly just and being invested in the time period of the world. And don't get me wrong, I think they've done phenomenal things with like past stories. I think the Vader comic is phenomenal.
It's my favorite.
Really, really enjoyed reading it. And I've loved some of the other canon books that have taken a look back. But we're whatever we are in now, 4 years in now, into this kind of new canon universe. And like, we're still drawing. It was expected at the beginning that they were going to draw kind of on those old things while they were creating a roadmap. But like, we're 4 years in, do not announce comics that are not about things that we should be caring about right now, or at least don't put those on the front burner, right? Like, don't waste San Diego Comic-Con telling me about something that I already knew about, right?
And where's my Kylo comic? Isn't it time we have a Kylo comic already? I mean, we already know
Kylo Ren.
We know so much of his backstory. We know a little bit of his backstory enough where they could do a comic run with him. Why did he leave? Why was Snoke getting at him? It doesn't have to be a novel, but why was Snoke getting at him? And honestly, and like P mentioned this earlier before the show, where's my Luke and the Padawans and his new temple? Yeah. Where's that comic and book? It's like, this is getting to be ridiculous.
That's my whole thing. And my big frustration is that you've set yourself up for a bad fan reaction in The Last Jedi because you're expecting fans to accept Luke in a much different place than the last time they saw him. And we're now past The Last Jedi, and we still don't have the story that bridges that. We still don't get to see Luke transitioning from who he was to who he became. And you can solve a lot of problems if you actually lay out that roadmap. And I don't want to have to wait till after episode 9 to actually get those stories. Because they'll eventually circle back and tell those stories. But why are we focusing on, like, respectfully, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan at this point, when there's much more relevant stories that we should be telling about the movies and stuff that you're making right now?
Yeah, this stuff has a shelf life. People have an awareness time scale of, you know, if I'm in this moment, I want to focus on this moment. If Rian Johnson starts coming out with his new trilogy, I don't give a rat's ass about the First Order at that point, right? I don't want to have to go back to fill in gaps or things I don't know and get deeper dive characters when now I have to take my time to invest in this whole new world. And then soon after, we got the Game of Thrones guys coming in with theirs. It's like there is a big, huge misstep here. And I think Liz mentioned it great before the show started. In the run-up to The Force Awakens, we got these journey books, even though they were short stories, gave us something. And it was all in line together. Rebels had just started, which I think now looking back, Rebels should have never been Rebels. It should have been the Resistance, right? They should have taken an extra year and brought Resistance out So while we're going through this journey with Rey and everyone getting bigger awareness of this new world, of this new era, and Liz was right. It's like this stuff should have been that same model. And I said, well, there was run-up books for The Last Jedi, not like The Force Awakens.
And they were released so late. They were not run-up books. They were like books that came out basically at the same time.
And they really weren't in depth again.
For literally no reason. Like some of them gave literally nothing away, and there was no reason that they kept them as late as they did. Like you should be giving them a 6 months. The trailer comes out. What books are coming out next week that I can read to get psyched before? And like also, I get the mystery box thing. That's so much of it now. We can't give anything away. Everything has to be revealed. But it's not like movies haven't been enjoyable where we don't know things going in. Right?
Yeah,
and your average fan still isn't going to know going in. You don't need, like, a character's name is not a spoiler. Where they're from is not a spoiler. Like, even for, I'm thinking about Kylo Ren, leading up to The Force Awakens, like, they told us so early into that movie that he was Han and Leia's kid. It wasn't even really supposed to be a spoiler. It was just the J.J. Abrams thing, and I understand with J.J. Abrams it never would have happened. But imagine if we would have had a Kylo Ren book 6 months before The Force Awakens came out. Can you imagine what we would have been anticipating with him on screen? We would have been losing our minds. And even in between here, what if they had cut back? Like, we know that Kylo Ren trained with Luke, and they just teased us, and they just did a book about when he was young and training and one adventure, and it gives away nothing. They went on adventures, right, while they were training.
Sure, they did.
Give us one adventure.
Absolutely.
They go on a planet, they do a mission, that's it. We don't need anything about Leia or Han or what Luke is like. It is one mission, and we are all losing our minds. There's no reason, and I said this before and I'll say it again, the way that they are dealing with canon right now is they've made everything so high stakes that they are worried about saying anything about their precious characters that could potentially ruin canon. So they stay a mile away from anything that's relevant right now. And that in the long run is going to kill them. It's going to absolutely kill them. If you're scared to play with your toys in the sandbox, like they're not your toys, right? Like
I know. I could almost
take them out of the box.
Yeah,
take them out of the box.
I could almost. Yeah, and it's like for me the biggest thing that sits with me, and I think the linchpin for this whole thing, is the fact that nothing could come out before the movies do. The movies have precedent, and it's like, or they have first run before anything else. I think that is a really bad strategy, because you are totally then sacrificing the entire shelf life of everyone's attention. Because you can't do it after the fact. And this is where it comes down to, where you have to have at least an inch deep and a mile wide arc for the whole trilogy. These are the major beats. This is what each movie's going to have. Ryan, you get this. JJ, you get this. But now that you know there's major beats, you have this whole wealth of information to go, okay, now we can talk about all this other stuff in books, in comics, in animation, and it's not going to interfere with reveals in the movie. It's not going to blow anything out. It's not going to mess them up. And that's the problem. I think that's the linchpin. This whole strategy of, sorry, can't talk about it. We'll give you a little nugget, but that's it. But to me, it's not even the little nugget. I'll sacrifice that. Give me the little nugget. But I want content. I want comic books, and animation that's in the era that you're playing in now. Stop giving me stuff from A New Hope. Rogue One was great. I loved it. Right? But here's the problem. It's like, here's this new era. Everyone get excited. All right, now we're going to talk about Rogue One. All right, now we're going to do Han Solo. Okay, now we're going to have comic books that are going back to Orlando from way back when. And now we're going to have this one over here for Afra. Well, I love Afra, which is great. Keep her. I'll keep her. You know, the Vader comics, love that too.
At least she's new.
Yeah,
At least she's new.
And
right?
the thing I'm saying is, I'm not asking that these things should never have happened. I'm not saying they should even taken away. Keep them. I'm asking for more. I'm asking for more in the era that I want. I want to. You know, it all comes down to me to that first 10 minutes with Rey on Jakku. And it's the concept art that was leaked even before the movie came out with her in that place. That's the romance for me that I fell in love with. Where are we? Looking everything dusted and rusted. This is a new time. And I know nothing about this new time. Anywhere. I've read all your... And see, I'm not like some regular fan here. Running a Star Wars fan site, I have to read everything. I have to read everything. I have to review everything, from toys to comics to everything else. And so when you take someone from my perspective who doesn't work at Lucasfilm and is a devout fan that has to read and look at everything, And when you hear from me, and I'm being completely honest, and everyone who knows me knows that I'm an honest guy, if I'm telling you I don't have anything substantial in this new era, that should concern you. Because if I don't have it, the guy on the street has little to nothing, who doesn't really go, checks out the movies, doesn't read comics or books or anything like that. And I think that's a big problem. It's like, I have been very patient for years, but we're 4 years in now. And after reading the release of these books, and we'll get into the novels here in a second, and we can get into this deeper. It's starting to bother me now. It's almost like, have they cut and run from this era? Let's finish the trilogy. We're just going to run away. We'll start a Ryan Johnson's whole new world, and that'll be that. Right? Is that the strategy?
I don't know. If that was the case, then they should have pulled away long ago,
Yeah.
right? Like, while you're making this trilogy, start to branch off and do other things that are totally different. If the problem is that you feel so beholden to kind of the characters, the worlds, the story as it is now, like, why haven't you pulled away sooner, right? But like, instead they keep on like treading water in the places where they feel safe, and the places where they feel like they have a good understanding and that they can do things that they think are going to work and that are going to be safe. But the thing is, like, they need to take some risks. They need to do some weird stuff. And now I'm going to talk about other properties again, but like when, think about what Marvel did, because like Fox had some of their major properties, right? So like they had to be creative. They had to think about characters and properties that were, at least to people who were not huge Marvel comic fans, outside of kind of their, like, I didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, right?
Sure.
And like, yet they made them household names. Like, if you really want to do this, if you really want to like do things that are different, and if you want to kind of stay in those time periods, at least do things that are like more outside of it, right? Like, I love Obi-Wan. I love Obi-Wan so much. I think that he is probably, after Luke, one of my favorite characters in the entire saga. I know Obi-Wan, right? Like, I had 6 movies and the Clone Wars series to like appreciate Obi-Wan. Give me someone else. Give me someone totally else. Give me someone outside of it.
Exactly.
If that's the game we're going to play. But like, to me, it just seems like we're treading water, we're playing it safe, and like that they don't really quite know what to do next. So instead they'll just greenlight projects that seem like, and I don't know like how it works in terms of, and I'm sure Star Wars authors have said this already, like some of them are approached or some of them pitch it, and like
Sure.
maybe that has some of it to do with it too. But like, there's gotta be people out there, like good Star Wars authors, who want to do different stuff. And like, how do we get their voices heard, and how do we like let that happen? Or at least take things in new creative directions where I feel like I'm not reading the same story over and over and over again, which, to be honest, in some canon books, I feel like I am. Like, I feel like I'm just like reading kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, it's been rough because some of the I've enjoyed a lot of the new canon books, but a lot of them, the stakes feel very contained and very small because they're playing within very defined borders. And the thing is that can be good and all, but one of the better reviewed of the new canon books was Bloodline.
Yeah.
And that was because not only was it new and fresh, gave us some new stuff, but it also played directly into the stories and from the new movies that we care about and need information about. And instead of doing more of that book, we're getting stuff that's filling in smaller gaps in different places in the timeline that we're not really focused as much on.
And that's a great segue into the novels here. And I'm going to go ahead and read out, what came to San Diego. Of course, we'll come back to that pretty heavy. So our good friends at Del Rey have announced 2 new novels, Star Wars Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. The novel is set before the events of Star Wars The Phantom Menace and follows Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon on a dangerous mission for the Jedi. Also, they announced that Star Wars Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston, a novel following Padme as she begins her new role as a senator from Naboo. And, when I watched the panel, I didn't tweet anything. I didn't even write the story. And I always write the story. I wasn't hopping mad. I was just disappointed. And I think disappointment is way worse than anger. It always is way worse than anger. Because I'm like, okay, we all love Padme. I would love to get a story from her. Don't take away that book. I want that book. Especially with E.K. Johnston writing it. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan before Phantom Menace. First thing I thought, okay, this is a tie-in sometime in the future. You don't come out with a book like this unless there's some sort of tie-in to a future event. Because what kind of ridiculous story do I care about those two before the Phantom Menace that has any consequence? Sure, it's a great story, but it has no relevance to this new era that I'm living in. The Sifo Dyas thing has sort of been fleshed out. What new thing? I mean, even if it's fine that they find Snoke, it doesn't make sense to me. Or if Obi-Wan finds a love interest, and that's why they have Claudia Gray writing it, because she's so fantastic, right? But Pete is right. Bloodline was a fantastic book and still is because it's in the new era. It gives us a lot of insight into the politics of the new era. But it only goes so deep because, of course, they lock them up. She can't talk about more than what she's supposed to. But it's like, and look, all the other canon books are here, right? Including the new one that I got to read tonight. Dawn Alliance is to get out. But really this? Clone Wars is done. It's like, it gets to me like, oh, but Timothy Zahn and I don't want to take the two that were announced. I want more. I want a Luke book. Where's my Luke book? Where's my Snoke book?
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to be kidding me. We got a year and a half till 9. This thing is going to wrap up. There should have been one major book release for this half of the year before the run-up. And next year should have some serious, and I mean some serious books. There should be a Kylo Ren book. There should be a book about Snoke and how the First Order came to be, because you're not going to be able to fit all that information in 9. If you're wrapping this up in one movie, you got a whole lot of context you got to fit in before people come in and it'll help in the run-up for it. But this is crazy.
Also, like, the thing for me is, I don't know if you guys know what, like, the turnaround time is on books, but, like, the other thing is, I think, like, if they know they want to have a Kylo Ren book that comes out next year, right? Like, let's just say they want to have a Kylo Ren book that comes out next year, and they don't have an author attached yet, and they don't have anything. What does it hurt to throw up a thing that says Kylo Ren coming 2019 and, like, have nothing on it, right? Like,
just
the
a
thing
treatment
to me that's so confusing.
Just have a treatment in your head.
Yeah, just like put up a picture, or not even. They had some of those already that said, like, title not ready. Just put up Kylo Ren, title yet to be announced, 2019. Sure. Like, the thing to me is, like, this, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but it seems a lot to me like a wasted opportunity. Like, they went to San Diego Comic-Con. We expected to hear some new stuff, and instead we got more older announcements. Like, guess what, guys? We're going to continue to play it safe. So I don't know, like, maybe they don't have it announced yet, like what's going to come out, you know what I mean, leading up to it. But, like, what does it hurt to say we think we're going to have a Kylo Ren book come out next year and have people go nuts?
It's just,
I will say that the Queen Shadow, the book by E.K. Johnson, is coming out from Disney Lucasfilm Press, and so that's technically their young adult novel, which is the same line they did Ahsoka and Lost Stars. They are doing very well in terms of the quality of those books.
Oh, they're fantastic. They are fantastic novels.
And there's a large segment of the fandom that I saw react very excitedly, because there's been a large segment that's been clamoring for a Padme book for a long time.
Oh yeah,
but
me too. I'm one of those people.
Respectfully, we've gotten a great deal of her story in the Clone Wars in the animated series. She has been in other books before. And at this point, I'm not sure, unless there's some big revelation that affects the story going forward, I'm not sure why that book is getting written now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
I don't get it.
There's no difference between publishing. The thing to me that's crazy is there's no difference between publishing a Padme or a Qui-Gon book now versus 5 years down the road. Where there's a huge difference publishing a Rey book now versus 5 years down the road.
Exactly.
Like, that to me is the crazy part. Like, it's not that I don't want a Padme book. I'm just wondering why now. And, like, really, you can, even further down the road, Padme might be more exciting, right? Like, we know Clone Wars is coming back right now. Like, we don't need to go back there. In 10 years, say, guess what? We've got a Padme book coming out, and we'd all lose our minds, right? Like, we're further out from it. But to me, it seems so weird right now that they keep on going back to kind of,
especially when, and the big point of the thing here is they don't put much big reveals in these books. They get little tiny nuggets. They don't get much of anything. So if you're drudging her out, you're taking her out of mothball, out of dry dock, and you're bringing her out to put her out to sea again, and you don't have any big nugget, big information, what the hell is the point? Everybody says, well, it's a great story. Okay, hold on a second. Like, those people who say that all the time, this is going to start to drive me nuts. We're talking about keeping things fresh on the shelf. You bring things new, get people to come into your store to buy stuff. If you keep drudging up the same old crap over and over again, and I'm sorry, I take back the word crap. It's not crap. Those and to me, timing is important. Like Pete had just mentioned, Bloodlines. Of course, what was it? Lost Stars, right? Another fantastic book from Claudia Gray. Was that Claudia Gray for Lost Stars? I forget.
Yeah.
So, but those books were okay the first year when The Force Awakens came out. Okay, I was cool to get those. Even in the second year, we got a Phasma book, which sort of delved into her life before the. I'm okay with that. But now we're 4 years in, and we only got a year before this trilogy's out. And I think that's where the frustration and the disappointment comes in. Because we let the first 2 years go with these books. They were great books. I'm glad we have them. But you can't do that now. You know?
The other problem... Oh, no, sorry.
Go ahead, Pete.
The only problem I was going to say... too. I'm just going to jump in here. The only problem I was going to say, too, is this is in part a problem with the fact that they put The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi 10 minutes apart. And now they have completely blocked out either of those time frames for doing anything. And so now they need to like get their act together. And to me, and I've pitched this before and I'll pitch it again, they need to do something that they haven't done before. And one of these next books needs to jump ahead of The Last Jedi and beat out episode 9, because otherwise we're just going to get caught in this wheelhouse again of like time that we've seen. So like we're going to be in episode 9 and who knows when that's going to be, and we're still going to be before The Force Awakens.
And
right?
the funny thing is,
so
but that's how life is normally. That's how life. I mean, this is how this business normally works. A book comes out first, series come out later. Game of Thrones, we had a whole series of books before they come out, and even though they leaped ahead eventually, it didn't hurt anything. It gets people engaged. It gets people involved. Having more in a book does not hurt the film as long as you know where the borders of that sandbox are. And it kills me that they know the borders of the sandbox, but they just have a rule. Sorry, no one can do anything ahead of the movies. And I think that is because they say, well, books don't bring in that much, comics don't bring in that much. The movies are where we make our money. But it's like animation's a big part of this, though. I can understand that argument for comics and novels. Fine. It doesn't bring in the cash. I get it. But when you're talking about animation, no. Now we're talking about something completely different. And now here's Jon Favreau's show, right? He says his show, his live action show, will take place during the Resistance era. And that's important. That one I think is super important. That's going to give into all things. But it's almost too late. Unless you plan on living in this era for a long time. And that's okay too. Right? If this era has legs on it, who knows? Maybe Rian Johnson is still in this era. We don't know. It could be just in a different part of the galaxy, right? We don't know. But it's getting to me. Go ahead, Pete.
I just want to interject. Like, if you look back and you look at the publishing calendar from the prequel trilogies between episode 1 and episode 3, excuse me, look at the novels they put out. It was stories that were set during that time period. They had an entire run of like dozens of books, like at least a dozen books, I think. But it was books after books after books and comics that all tied into this time period that told the story in between the movies or set up stuff in the movies. And we're not getting as much of that now. And I don't think that supports either the movie or the downstream marketing from the movie into the novels and stuff. You want people to read those because they won't watch the movie, and you want them to buy those to learn what's coming in the next movie.
I'm sorry, just to jump in. The Clone Wars are fantastic because the Clone Wars animation series was running at the same time as these things were coming out in the prequel era. That's what gives that era this huge gravitas that everyone loves so much. Because not only did you get your fill-in for the 3 movies, you got it in the animation series that was running at the same time as well. Right? At least for one of the films. At least, right? When did the Clone Wars came out? Right before Revenge of the Sith, right?
I think so. No?
Or did it come out after, Peter, or
Pete's
before?
shaking his head no.
10th anniversary and afterwards.
Everything came out afterwards?
I got to check.
When did the Clone Wars movie come out?
I thought it came out just before Revenge of the Sith. I could have sworn it came out before. I could be wrong on that, though. But in any case,
it's way after, because Sith was 2005.
And Clone Wars was 2008.
Yeah.
So that just kills my argument then. You win, Lucasfilm.
No, but there was the Gandhi series that was during the film time that was supporting it on the Cartoon Network, and then there was the novels and stuff that were coming out during the prequel era before the Clone Wars series started.
Yeah, the Star Wars Clone Wars series came out in 2003, which, I mean, definitely was not as good as the other Clone Wars series, but it was still something, right? Like something was happening during there. No, the thing that I was going to say is, like, speaking as someone who, like, doesn't get the books and I like have to sparingly choose which books I'm going to read, right?
Sure.
Like, as someone who does not go pick up every single Star Wars book that comes out. When I had Audible, which I recently canceled, but when I had Audible, I would get more, like, because they would come out, and like, especially if I wanted to do like a younger reader one, I would just listen to it because, like, I'd read it, it'd take me 10 minutes. But as someone who does that, I am way more likely to do it when it ties into something that I feel like is relevant to now. So Bloodline was a great example. I read Lost Stars, or one that I'm just like really interested in, right? Like I read the Vader one when it came out. But like these, and then literally as they were being announced, I was like, I don't think I'm going to buy any of these. Like if I have to go out and pay like my hard-earned, now broke graduate student money to buy these books, I'm only going to get the ones that like I'm really going to prioritize. And that's not horrible, right? Like, again, they're pumping out these books. They don't expect them to make a ton of money. But if you want kind of a more casual person to get it, you need to link it up to what's happening now.
And I think The Force Awakens was such a great example of that. We have recent history here. When The Force Awakens, before it came out, when I started the site, everybody was scrapping for any little bit of information that would give them insight into what this new era was going to be. I don't care if it was C-3PO on a cup found in a Walmart in Mexico. That's a real story, folks. Literally. And it's almost like all the books, anything that came out, everyone read it. Everyone wanted to know about it. There's a segment of the Star Wars population that will always do that. They want everything they can grab their hands on. And I think it is easier to sell a book saying, hey, but the thing is, you burned people for so long. You literally came out with books for 3 years that gave them very little to nothing, right? Because you couldn't. And you know, a lot of people got burned by the run-up books that they didn't really have. I mean, I'll never forget when I read the first Aftermath book. I love the book, enjoyed Chuck's writing. I'm still a big fan of the first book. But I had my expectations that I was going to get. And this was my first Star Wars book that I've read in the new canon. I haven't read anything. Well, I'm sorry. I did read some short stories in the run-up. But this is the first major novel that came out that I dived into. And I remember thinking, I didn't learn almost anything. And I was kind of upset. But I had to sit down before I did my review, and I was good. But that was the case for every book after. That was the way things were going to go. And it's kind of like now that it's like, this is getting to be... And I think that... Here's a good question for the panel. Would there be so much fervor and anger and hatred on YouTube and in social media for Star Wars in general that we're going through right now if there were really good books and comics about this era? Like if we got the Kylo book or Luke and his Padawans in an animation series. So if Rebels wasn't Rebels and instead it was Luke and his Padawans, right? Or gallivanting with Ben. If there was all this stuff about this era, would there be so much fervor and stuff that's going on right now if that stuff existed?
I think the fervor is tied to other things too, like particular political
obviously.
moment and the way that online culture is, and like the fact that you've written about this before, but that Lucasfilm, like there's a money in kind of being a horrible fan right now. The thing that I will say is, for the average person who enjoys Star Wars, who doesn't know how they feel about this new trilogy and these new characters, we've had so little of them. Like, I think about Ahsoka and how much everybody hated her when the series started. And in part, she like grew over time as the character evolved and they wrote her differently. But partially, like, that's how characters evolve. Like, you find their voice, you find their stories. And like, it's actually marvelous to me that we like some of the characters from this new trilogy as much as we do, given how little we've had with them. Especially since, like, if you think about it, the screen time that we had with like Luke in the original trilogy versus the screen time we've had with Rey in this new trilogy. I mean, I haven't counted it up, but my guess would be Rey has had less screen time, right? Like, they've just filled it up with other stuff. And like, they also had the older characters to deal with and all this stuff. I wish we would have just had more of them. And I think about someone like Kylo Ren, and I'm going to pitch this again because I love him. But like, I adore Kylo Ren, and Adam Driver's portrayal of him has been magnificent. And like, I wasn't sure about him in The Force Awakens, and in The Last Jedi, whatever qualms I had with that movie, it was not with Adam Driver and Kylo Ren.
Sure.
Like, that character, I just wanted more, and I've gotten nothing else. And like,
there's nothing.
That's crazy to me. And so to me, it's also just like, you've given us so little time with these characters, and we're about to be done with them, presumably.
Here's a quick example.
And like, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
Like,
here's a quick example. Pete, you're getting ready to get on an airline. You're getting ready to get on an aircraft, right? You're going to take a flight to wherever you're going. You're sitting in the concourse, and you're in a bookstore. You're picking up a drink, bottle of water to get into the plane. And you're sitting there, and you're buying the bottle of water, and you look over, and there's the newsstand right next to you, and also the book stand. And now you see, if you saw a book about Snoke book, or you see a book about, and right next to that Snoke book is a book about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on an adventure. Which one are you buying to get on that? I mean, if you even notice it, Snoke book? Which one are you picking?
Well, I'm probably going for the Kylo Ren book, but
Kylo Ren. No, but I'm saying, no, but you see my point.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean Snoke book. It'd be a Kylo Ren book. The point is, if I'm sitting in an airline, I'm a regular Joe Schmo who just watches the movies, and I see a Snoke book, I'm picking that sucker up for the flight. But if I see an Obi-Wan film, or an Obi-Wan book, or a Padme book, I'm like, oh, a Padme story. Yeah. Like I did the same thing when it came out. Of course, it's not a canon book anymore, about Palpatine. Going through the concourse over at Union Station here in D.C. I remember walking by like for 3 weeks. Maybe I'll buy it. All right, I'll buy it.
Well,
and I picked it up. Because it's almost, and that's even before The Force Awakens came out, because there's no relevance to it anymore. Even though I enjoyed the book. It's like, what's going to get people to pick up stuff off the shelf? But you have to add to that. You have to add big chunks of information in there too. You just can't have the book for the sake of having the book. You got to add stuff in there too. And it's a shame to me, because I think Star Wars publishing could be this amazing. It could be Game of Thrones level. And and it should be. On a consistent basis. Now also, well, they are number one. They are selling. It could be more than that. It could be way more than that, and consistently like that. And it's not. It's not even on. I literally now looking for the last 6 months of the year going, that sucks. Knowing that I got another year and a half before The Last Jedi, before this whole thing ends, this trilogy, and for 6 months of it, that's 1/3. Meh. I got nothing. That's crazy. I don't know who sits in a boardroom, and I don't care, and it's not a whole, Kathy Kennedy's making a mistake. That's not where I'm getting at. It's like, how can anybody sit back and go, okay, guys, what are we selling to people for the next 6 months? What do people want to read and buy? Are people doing market analysis of this stuff? Because The Last Jedi was a perfect example of that segment of people who want answers to stuff and characters and environments, like Canto Bight. Yeah, there should be a huge adventure that delves deep into Canto Bight and some of the other places we've been to and some of the characters and where they come from, especially characters where they come from and the lives that they lived before we saw them in the movies. And it's starting to reach into, but it's also what Liz just talked about. There's no time in between now. Rian Johnson completely killed that chance of writing anything between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Or maybe now soon after.
Like whether it was comics or novels or whatever, where's the Maz Kanata story? You could have all kinds of stories branching out from her. Whereas the comic book miniseries with Kylo and the Knights of Ren causing havoc somewhere.
Where are those guys?
Like if you're not going to use them, you have perfect opportunity to get people excited by doing some crazy stuff with them.
And is their game plan going to be, well, when this is done, we'll run this stuff, because when Rian Johnson comes out with his stuff, we're not going to tell you anything about that one either. So you're going to have to get your fill filling in the last thing you were getting into, because we're not going to tell you anything about his. To me, it comes down to the strategy. I don't think this strategy works. I don't think it works at all. And it also ties into the toys. It ties in with everything. It's all the merch, and that's where the money is. It's in everything. Everyone's deflated. Everyone's bored because there's nothing here.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's crazy. You have people who want to spend money, and there's nothing to spend money on. And that could be infuriating for consumers, as crazy as that is. People can save their money, but no, they choose to want to spend it. And you go to the conventions. I mean, to go to San Diego, if you were a really big Star Wars fan and you spent that kind of money to go to San Diego Comic-Con, really? Honestly, I can say that from experience. I went to San Diego Comic-Con for the Rogue One run-up. The best time I had was at the Hasbro panel and the publishing panel. There was nothing else. They had a costume exhibit. Great. They showed one character new that we didn't see before, 2 tubes. Wonderful. This gets to the point where, yeah.
Were you there summer 2016? Is that when you were there?
I'm not sure if that's, I can't remember the year, but yeah, I was there. It was the first time I went to a convention.
I was there, and I didn't go to any of the Star Wars stuff because it was the least interesting stuff going on there. I got to meet everybody. I got to hang out with everyone from the Making Star Wars crew and the Star Wars Underworld crew and Steel and everybody, and we had a blast. But for Star Wars stuff, there was nothing there. And it's like for this one too. And it's like, what bothers me, I think what bothers me the most this time around, Del Rey's always had great lineups. They did. And there was always a book or two I was always looking forward to. Couldn't wait to sink my teeth into. I mean, those guys do such a great job. And Disney Publishing too. I'm in love with that whole crew. And I'm like, where are the books that I'm looking for this era? There's nothing. How could you have nothing? And the toy, and I think this goes back to the toys too. The thing is, it's like we keep putting on the same old coat, and it gets old. It does. Well,
even if you're not going to go directly in a movie, where is the stuff surrounding Resistance? Where are the novels that are going to either go along with this or lead into this? There has to be some synergy between publishing and the on-screen stuff, and it doesn't seem like it's jiving up that well. We're getting the novelizations late. We're getting some supporting books, but it's usually lower grade stuff, like middle grade or young reader books. But where is the stuff aimed at the adult consumer or the teenage consumer that's going to reward them for spending the time and money, investing the time and money in books or in comics, and enriching their experience with the movies or the TV shows?
And I've been harping on the marketing people so much lately, and I feel bad for them because they're at the end of the chain. If there's nothing to sell, how do you get them to sell? You put them in a really, really crazy spot. There's kids invading Liz's space. I love it. But it's one of those things that it just, I don't know. I'm disappointed. Hasbro, and maybe this will segue into the some of the toy stuff we're going to get. Hasbro also showcased some goodies as well at San Diego Comic-Con. They came up with a Black Series Chopper and Ezra, and Rio Durant from Rebels, and some other goodies as they came around. Right?
It's very. I'm kind of a picky fan when it comes to the collectibles because like most of the Hasbro stuff, for the price, the sculpts, while they've been improving with some of the facial scan stuff, it's not worth me spending $20 on a figure. Well, I'd rather spend a little more money to get a nicer statue from one of the other higher end collectible companies.
Well, of course, I love Hasbro because they sent me the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, which I have behind me, all 4 of them, and this time before the convention, which is great because they're fantastic. But but how great! This is how I like to armchair quarterback this stuff. After the convention, how great would this convention would have been if Filoni goes, here's the trailer for Star Wars Resistance. It is only for kids. It's Saturday morning, but you'll enjoy watching it with your kids. Here's a trailer. Here are the characters. Here are the voice actors. Oh, and when you go to the Hasbro panel, after this panel, they're going to show you the new lineup of toys for Star Wars Resistance at their panel. Way before even the show even comes out. Now, how good is that for Hasbro? How good is that for the fans at San Diego Comic-Con? How good is that for Star Wars in general? You have everybody there. Hasbro's already working on these toys, right? They're already working on them. They're dying to talk about this stuff. They would love to talk about, here's our Resistance guys. Here's the characters you just heard about. Here are the toys that we're going to have for you this Christmas. Ready to go. Nothing. And those are the kind of missteps because, we can't do that because we didn't even announce a trailer yet. We didn't announce a show yet. And you know what's going to happen? There's going to be potato phone images of those toys found in Taiwan somewhere in the next 6 weeks, and that's how we're going to find out about them. When the guys at Comic-Con, and of course Steele and I and a bunch of guys have been raving about this forever for marketing, why aren't the new toys here for the new series that's going to happen? Why? Even for episode 9. Here are some figures. Who the hell is that guy? Just the name and what he looks like. Holy cow. Gets everyone stirring and talking. Does it hurt the movie? Of course not. Does it make a difference? No. But it gets everybody hyped up and talking. And it's like, but we can't do that. Nope, everything goes in order. And I think part of it also becomes too that you have companies like Entertainment Weekly that pay to have exclusives from Lucasfilm. You know, they pay the big money, they get the exclusives, and nobody can talk about anything because we're getting money from them. Right? They bought access. But what ultimately always happens? It gets leaked before, and they get screwed. Right? Classic case. That happens to Entertainment. I don't think Entertainment Weekly has had an exclusive that everyone hasn't seen or heard about before they've come out yet. Thank you, Florian. That was Rogue One for Florian. Completely scooped the hell out of him. Right? It's like, it kills me. This strategy is not working. And it could work. You just have to open up the mystery box a little bit and tell people what you're working on. And
well, like, I mean, how long before Empire Strikes Back did George have Boba Fett out in a parade? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was just looking it up while we were talking because I was curious. And even if you don't go back to the original, like the very first marketing for Rebels,
sure,
we had a full trailer on May 5th. And the series premiered about the exact same time, the first week of October. So you're talking, we're already like 2.5 months past that, and we don't even have a teaser trailer for the new series. They've got to build audience for this stuff. They have to build anticipation and audience. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of toys like Forces of Destiny that sit on a shelf, that go on clearance at Walmart, and that the line ends up dying off because you're not marketing and you're not supporting your content.
All this goes hand. I don't see it. For me, it's just hard, and to sit back and look at this. Just look. I'm dying to see that Lucasfilm whiteboard. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're building, and no one's bringing up the question. Okay, what are we going to have for everybody? Is it what they want? And that's the question. I mean, big companies do market analysis all the time, and I'm sure Lucasfilm is doing it too because they're smart people. But maybe the marketing people that you're doing for these surveys, maybe they're not that good. Because that ultimately drives your decisions. If you're a big corporation looking at what products to sell, you always do a market analysis to find out what's good, what's not, before you spend almost big money on moving this stuff down the line. I'm sorry, but that's what everybody does. I used to work for a concrete roof tile manufacturer years ago. That's what they did. And it's concrete roof tiles, for crying out loud. But they want to know what people want: color, size, shapes, designs. Right? Lucasfilm really needs to sit back and go, are we getting good information? Because part of this just doesn't jive. There's a fault here somewhere in the pipeline. And like I said, tomorrow I can't wait to write up this feature. Because I don't know the culture at Lucasfilm. I don't know if there's a bunch of people standing around, executives going, yes, sir, that sounds like a great idea, sir. No problem, sir. Or do people there really take out their mugs and go for a fist fight, go, this is stupid. We need to do more stuff. We need to be stuff that's relevant to the movies that we're having now, the era that we live in. And they're fighting for it. I don't know the culture there, so I can't answer that.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you go ahead.
I was just going to add that before the Disney purchase, they did have a website called Obi-Wan Wants to Know or something like that. And they did do some basically online focus groups with fans it was invite only. Basically, you had to go in there, and they would ask you questions like that, like what would you be excited about? What have you heard about that we're doing? And they were doing some of that. I believe they shut it down because I haven't heard anything about it since the purchase, pretty much. So
you were saying, Liz?
No, I was just saying that the thing that gives me hope and makes me a little cautious is that we do have all these other things coming, that we have Rian Johnson's trilogy, that we have the Game of Thrones guys trilogy. Guys, we have a entire theme park section being built about Star Wars right now. And like, I just really hope that in the next year, as they're kind of doing this critical, I'm sure, evaluation after Solo, they realize that the direction they should be headed is like forward and out, right? And that like they're really prioritizing and thinking about how do we get people excited about these new projects. Hell, write a book about kind of the world that this new like Disney park place is going to take place in, like Batuu. Like, why don't we have that coming?
I will say that, like, you guys haven't read the book yet, but I'm not going to spoil anything. But Batuu is in the new Thrawn Alliance's book.
Oh, well, that's good.
But it's not the focus. It's just sort of there to be there to introduce it, and then they move along. So it's like, if you're going to feature the world, you might as well go in depth and feature it in a more dramatic way to get people excited for the park.
Yeah, I'm walking with Evan and Gabby. Daddy, what's this place called? Batuu. Okay. What is it about? I have no idea, son. How stupid does that sound? You know, and I hate to get so energized about this and so passionate about it. It's because, to me, it is the strategy. Because if their feet in cement strategy, if they're going to stay in this strategy with Rian Johnson, with the Game of Thrones guys, you're just repeating the same mistakes. You see what I'm just trying to get everyone's eyes open and I'm not saying I have the answer. I have no answers to give you. I have no idea how things should go forward and how much you can't. I'm not in the movie business. I'm not in Hollywood. But I know as a consumer and someone who reads and sees everything, that I'm getting nothing about the era that I live in now, the one that I'm curious about. And that's a problem. It's a problem for marketing. It's a problem for everybody. And I don't think there's a single person in Lucasfilm that would read that tomorrow when I'm going to write this up, that it's not going to go, you know, Max has a point. And it's not being because it's out of spite or malice or something stupid. You know, like a lot of the stuff that's going out there right now, especially on YouTube. Get rid of Kathy, Ryan ruin everything. I'm not talking about any of that garbage. This is a legit concern because it comes right after saying, I mean, when you have people coming out, and I've heard it from other guys already in other sites. We've talked already, like, this is all you got? And where's resistance? And I think that's starting to come up too with a lot of people like, this is great. I mean, you learn lessons. What happened to Solo? You can't bank on Star Wars selling itself. You have to get out there and you got to hit the street. You got to get it in people's faces and you got to convince them that's a good thing to have. And the main point is you got to sell them something that they want. And you can't take that for granted anymore. You never should have taken it for granted. The hype for Force Awakens was real. It was memorable. Even in now, it's still recent history, but there's already a nostalgia there. We missed that moment when this teaser trailer came out on Thanksgiving. We all stayed up at night. We grabbed every damn thing we could find online to find out what is this new world. I want Rian Johnson, the Game of Thrones guys, to have the exact same thing, but I want them to have real answers more. So when people see a book on the shelf, they buy that damn thing. They don't just go to Star Wars Leaks. They don't go to some forum to get the highlights and not even buy the book. I want people to go, there's so much in these books that I have to buy the book because it's important. Because the highlights from somebody's not going to tell me everything. I need to experience what they're talking about. Don't forget, every single Star Wars nerd out there, one of the biggest things you love to have is to know more about Star Wars than your family member that you're taking to the movies with you, so you could explain things to them. That's one of the hallmarks of investing yourself in a franchise. It's one of the perks of putting the time and the energy in and the money in. And it's like you have to give people what they want. And what they want is this new era that you gave us. And that's what's crazy to me. And, I hate this 3 harping on Lucasfilm show in a row because that's not what we're about. We're about positivity. I'm happy they're writing all this stuff. I am.
Yeah.
I don't want any of it to go away. I'm going to buy and read that Padme book like you wouldn't believe.
And I will say that, I really liked Claudia Gray's writing that I've seen so far. And The Master Apprentice, if I will be the first one out there in the street with my little placard celebrating the fact that if we get a story about Obi-Wan and Satine in their younger days before the Clone Wars, of course. If we get that, I'll be ringing the bell and saying it's amazing because that would be the biggest Obi-Wan story I'm interested in seeing on screen at any time period at this point. But it's just I like being positive. I don't like being constructively critical.
It's okay to be constructively critical without malice. There's a difference there.
And I'm not attacking anybody. I think it's not an easy job, and you've got a lot of different dishes that are spinning in the air. You're trying to get stuff going and figure out what fits where. And when you have tie-in movies that are getting shuffled around the board when they're going to be released, and you've got this stuff planned out far ahead of time, it all relates. I mean, there was a couple years ago where we had a bunch of toys in the stores because they were supposed to get the 3D releases of the prequels out, and they decided to stop that, but they still had the toys already in production. So stuff like that happens. It's just, I think they need to be a little smarter about how they're moving going forward and how they're tying everything together, and being a little less tight to the chest with stuff and just loosen it up a little bit. Let a little layer in there.
Yeah, and to make things clear, this isn't about they're not working hard enough. This isn't about they're dumb, they don't know their job. This is not about that at all. They are all hardworking, talented, super awesome individuals at Lucasfilm. What this is, and it's not a dig on Kathy, but these are executive level decisions, right? And project manager decisions that come down that ultimately it always has to go to the top, because that's how business is. That's how the government is. That's how the military is, right? It all goes up to the top. And it's okay to misstep. It's okay to make mistakes. Hey, this whole thing, and everyone knows I am a sort of apologist, because it's a huge undertaking to take over a franchise. Like someone like Disney taking it over and starting it up and getting it. It's not easy. There's going to be missteps. There's going to be a bunch of stuff. But what I'm clamoring for and what I'm hoping helps is some real objective criticism. What's the word I'm looking for? Criticism without malice. That's honest. And it's not to say I know better than you or I think you're making a mistake. It's, can we get a second set of eyes on this? Really see if this is the way we're going to go. Really listen to fans and people who are honest about what's going on. And the great thing about running a Star Wars fan site is it's like we're walking, talking marketers. We hear from everybody what they like about Star Wars stuff. And there's a lot of people in my office who don't like Star Wars right now. And I hate hearing it, and they love it. I really don't want to hear it. And they just come forward and throw it over the fence. Like, thanks. Go get your coffee. Leave me alone. And it's like, I think there's a hunger there. And as long as that's not a problem, then that's a good thing. But you got to start feeding what they want. And I think even if it is a book or a comic book, or especially an animation series, which can do wonders, right? It matters to hit what's relevant. Make Rey's era important. Make it great again, right? Like, tell me everything about it. I want to know the politics. I want to know where everybody sits. How bad was it when they all got wiped out in The Force Awakens with the Republic, right? That's the stuff that matters. It paints a bigger picture. We get a bigger tapestry. And what I'm saying is, if it comes after the fact, it's too late, because I want to focus in on Rian Johnson's trilogy then. And the game, I don't want to have to invest my energy back for something that's done when I want to focus what's going on forward or right in the moment. And I think that's the mistake. It's a bad strategy. It is. I don't think it's working. And I think honest people need to say, you really have to look back at it and whiteboard it and try something different. If it fails, no problem. Then figure out and try something else. And there's nothing wrong with that, even in politics and real life. It's okay to try things that are new and different. If it doesn't work, you just try something else. But you can't keep doing what you're doing for 4 years because it's not working. It's not making people like me, who are the biggest apologists for Disney can be and for Lucasfilm. It takes a lot to get me upset from what those guys do. It does. It doesn't come easy to me. I'm not ready to go off the handle. It takes a lot to get me here. And it's like that guy you always know that was always nice, would never do anything, holds everything up in his chest forever until all of a sudden you smudge his Puma, and then he shoots up like a whole post office or something. Like, I'm that type of guy when it comes to Lucasfilm and Star Wars. I give them a lot of breaks because it's a hard job. But it gets to a point, though, where you got to kind of raise your hand. We did it with Rebels. Rebels Season 2 was a perfect example. Season 1, very focused. Here's 5 people. You got to invest in them, know who they are. They're important. And then Season 2 comes around, and it's right off the bat. Here's Ahsoka. Here's Rex. Oh, we're here out here. Here's some other planets. And all of a sudden, you forget who you're supposed to be focusing on. And I sounded the alarm then. We need to go back to Ezra. We need to go back to Kanan and their relationship. Stop making, we have to go back to their planet that they came from. Even though we were dying to leave because we started to get bored there after the first year. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm done off my soapbox. I know I had a lot of speeches for me today. But yeah, I mean, I had to get this off my chest. I hate it. I'm in this hot garage, making me crazy. Oh my goodness. I love this show. I love you guys. I love Lucasfilm. I love everybody that's there, but I want more. All right, guys. I think we had a great show. I think we talked this to death. I think people took their earbuds out probably a long time ago already about the show. Okay, guys, just to wrap this up, Liz, Pete, thanks guys for being on here again. People, if you want to follow them on Twitter, we'll have it in the show notes here on YouTube, right? You can go ahead and check down at the bottom there to get. And don't forget to visit us at StarWarsPost.com. Great place to get your news. And don't forget to visit us on iTunes and subscribe and rate and review the podcast positively. It would totally make my Tuesday and Wednesday when I read it. I had a great show today, guys. We'll see you guys again. We're going to start doing the show once a week. So we'll see you guys next Thursday. All right, guys. Have a great evening.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Star Wars Post livecast. Please subscribe, rate, and review our livecast on YouTube, Facebook, and iTunes. And don't forget to get all your Star Wars news, reviews, features, and more at thestarwarspost.com. The galaxy at your fingertips. Good night, and may the Force be with you.
All right, guys, we're